episode of the Founder Spotlight at Tax Mantra Global. As you know that in this series of ours, we celebrate those founders who are building something disruptive and innovative which caters to the global SMB ecosystem as a whole. We are very glad that today we have with us Sandeep Todi, who is the co-founder at Truly Financial, which is an online banking service for startups and SMBs. In fact, calling it just an online banking service would be an understatement. It has been revolutionizing the global small business banking solutions for quite some time now. So Sandeep is a veteran in the fintech industry with 30 plus years of experience in building financial softwares. He has launched a lot of products earlier and he built Truly Financial in 2021 with a vision to provide global banking to smaller businesses who have always been a bit underappreciated by the traditional banking systems. They have a team spread across US, Canada, and Asia, and their aim is to build the first, or if I may say, the best alternative to global banking for millions of SMBs across the world. We also have Alok Patnia with us, who would be hosting Sandeep today. He is our managing partner, and he has 20 plus years of experience in global finance and building businesses. He is an angel investor himself, and he is a great strategist who works continuously with the startups, with innovative, disruptive startups all over the world. So I would ask Alok to take over the baton and welcome Sandeep, and let us get started with the conversation.
Thanks, Dipanjali, for such a kind intro, and thanks, Sandeep, for joining us today. And Dipanjali, you rightly said that small and medium-sized businesses and startups were not the core focus for large traditional businesses because they would think that they are not their right customers or from a TGI perspective. And but the reality is that the small businesses are the backbone of any economy. In fact, in 2021, the number of small businesses in the US have reached 32.5 million, making it almost 99.9% of total US businesses. And as you said that small and medium-sized businesses are under catered sector when it comes to traditional banking. And traditional banks have unfortunately could not create the products or services which a small and medium-sized businesses, hyper growth businesses would require that. There are, and because of that, there are a lot of digital only banking solutions which have come in. There are a lot of digital bank, neo bank, which has come in US, and the neo banking market from business account segment is set to expand to around 45% growth rate to 2028 to exceed 600 billion USD. So with that backdrop, let me introduce Sandeep again. Sandeep is the co-founder of Truly Financial. And as a small business owner, there is never enough time or money, yet banks demand both from time all the time. And outdated and expensive banking systems can make you feel powerless, especially when your headcount is 1 or even 25 and growing. So Truly Financial has been creating a niche neo-banking solutions that help SMBs do business globally with banking, cards and payments that work together and help founders and remote team get work done faster at significant lower cost. For example, Truly Financial Visa card is available to remote teams whenever they may live across the globe. And this is something that a local bank would never be able to offer. The vision is to enable small businesses, give them equitable access to financial services so they can grow and compete on an equal footing. Sandeep, with this note, I would request you if you can give a background in terms of how you have started Truly Financials and a little bit of your background, uh, which will help us to understand this.
Hi, Alok and Dipanjali. Thanks for the introduction. And I'm delighted to be here and have the opportunity to tell you about Truly Financial. So, and as you rightly said, these SMBs, they have not been served very well until now, especially by the larger banks. So if you look at what's happening around us, the world is globalizing rapidly. But globalization is not limited to large companies like Apple and Nike. SMBs, today they're spreading their wings at a furious pace. They're dealing with suppliers, customers, across borders. They're hiring remote employees halfway across the world. Now, these businesses, they need access to global banking. And at Truly Financial, we are making that easy and accessible to them. So, our vision is to become the global small business bank for SMBs, across sectors throughout the world.
Great. So, what I understand, Sandeep, is that if you can give me a couple of case studies in terms of how you have actually created these solutions and which can really help global entrepreneurs. One of the case studies which I gave was in terms of offering credit cards to global remote teams. But if you can give me a couple of interesting case studies which have really impacted and solved the problem of a small and medium-sized businesses when they're going global from a financial perspective.
Yeah, that's a great question. So to give you a little bit of a background, I've been building cross-border payments product in the past before launching Truly Financial. And that was also built for SMBs to be able to pay suppliers and contractors globally. And, while I was building and growing that product, we discovered that a complete global banking solution with, cross-border payments embedded in it, that would serve these businesses much better than existing conventional banks and also existing neobanks, which we call as neobanks 1.0. So to answer your question, there is no global business banking service or product out there. I mean, if you leave aside people like Citibanks of the world, which who can afford those kind of large Citibank global accounts, but leaving those aside, there's nothing that was built for SMBs. Now, what is it that these SMBs need? Take an example of, a small manufacturer, who could be in a remote town in the US. So just to, kind of, the reason I'm mentioning US is currently we are live in the US and Canada. Now, if this manufacturer, has to pay a supplier in Italy for, let's say, a kitchen equipment, and that's $10,000. What do they do today? They actually have to drive down to the bank, fill out some forms, and then wait for the money to be delivered to the supplier. Now, these SMBs, it's very crucial for them to be able to make these payments on time to their suppliers, because the longer it takes, it slows down their manufacturing process. So they need to be able to do these payments fast and efficiently. Now, when they go to a regular bank and they make this relatively small value payment, let's say $10,000, number one, it costs them a lot in terms of just bank fees. And number two, and most importantly, they do not know when their supplier is actually going to receive the money, right? And they don't have a line of credit or anything like that with the supplier. So the supplier now will only ship once they get paid. Now, expand this example to, let's say, 10, 50, 100 suppliers that they need to pay every month. And then you can see how the problem becomes magnified because they're completely dependent on traditional banking. I'll give you another example, an e-commerce store, right? We're now talking about a tech-enabled business. They need to pay a supplier, in China. And it's the same situation. They don't know when the money is going to get delivered. And leaving aside the fact how much they lose just in, currency exchange and bank fees and so on. So, these banking solutions that we have today, if you go to a traditional bank, they were designed and built 40, 50 years ago. Wire transfer as a product is actually 50 years old. Since then till now, nothing has changed, right? But small businesses have now become global. Like I was mentioning earlier, they need access to, paying suppliers, paying employees, and they need it in a way which is predictable and at a low cost. Large banks are not able to serve them just because of their cost structure. In fact, if you just Google and look at Citibank or HSBC, one of these larger banks, they have actually exited small business banking in different markets over the last few years, and it's not surprising. And I can I can give you numerous such examples. It's not just about payments. While cross-border payments is something that we do exceedingly well, because that's kind of in our company's DNA. We have, for example, companies who pay employees and contractors across the halfway across the world, from the US and from Canada, into Philippines, into India, into Ukraine, right? And these payments are small, like $500, $400. How do you make a wire transfer for $500? You'll end up paying like $30 to $40 just in bank fees. That's 10%, right? So we designed this around payments efficiency so that these businesses can, not just pay their suppliers outside the US and Canada, but they can pay suppliers, within the country as well, local ACH payments. They can make payments online using our Visa cards, and they get a cashback on all their corporate spending. Like you mentioned, they can issue these cards to their employees, so the employees don't have to spend on their personal credit cards for company expenses. So really, through the banking service, we're just making it easier for all these SMBs to do their banking, day-to-day banking, and cross-border banking, and also any kind of an online expense using a single service, so that they don't have to split their money between 3 or 4 different banks.
Great. I hear you on this, and that's where your service and your solutions are becoming so critical for small and medium-sized businesses. In fact, you rightly said Citibank has pulled out serving to small clients in India also. Actually, they have sold off their practice to Axis Bank, and these larger banks, and due to their structure and due to their hierarchy and the legacy issues, it becomes very difficult for them to render services to small and medium-sized businesses. So Sandeep, just moving ahead, what wanted to understand is that what you're trying to solve is not only payment within the country, but also cross-border. And cross-border payment is something which is the most critical, most important part of your solution, if I'm right. So and currently you're live in US and Canada. So and this message is to many Indian entrepreneurs who wants to set up in US, and they don't, and it's a big challenge in setting up a bank account, and then uh, I think the credit card and debit card, those things is just not possible for them if they're in India. So from an Indian entrepreneur, if you can help me to understand that tomorrow I'm just in India and I want to set up a company and get the bank account and all those things, will you be able to help me seamlessly?
Yes, in fact, that kind of goes back to the core of what we are trying to solve. For us, we believed even before we had launched the product that we must create something which is globally accessible. Right now, from a regulatory point of view, the companies that we serve, they would be incorporated in the US or Canada, because that's where we have our banking relationships and our regulatory program. However, and again, going back to why does an Indian entrepreneur or someone who's not a US citizen, why do they incorporate in the US? The reason is because they want to do business with the US, right?
Right.
And from the US, they want to do business with the world. Now,
Right.
that doesn't mean that just to be able to do business, you need to relocate to that country, right? That would be completely, that would be a big decision, and not everybody can do that. So coming back to your question, we wanted to make sure that we are able to offer our services and our bank accounts and our cards to entrepreneurs, with US and or Canadian corporations, regardless of where they are currently living. So we built our entire product, and our, so there's, as there's regulatory compliance around all of these things. So we built our program so that we could offer these accounts to entrepreneurs outside the US as well, who have a US corporation. And today we regularly, every single day, we onboard open accounts for both US persons, US citizens, as well as entrepreneurs who are outside the US, but who have a legitimate, US registered business. And we are doing that every single day, including for Indian owned businesses.
Right, right, right. So, Sandeep, do you also help in setting up the entity itself? Tomorrow, if I want to go and tell Truly Financial that, see, I am here and I need to set up the entity and the bank account and everything. So, can you do that, or you would want me to first create a company and then come to you?
Yeah. So our service is really a banking service, and we don't distinguish or discriminate between where the entrepreneur is based at. However, if they need to incorporate the company and they don't have a presence yet, they would need to reach out to a registered agent or a lawyer, who can help them do that. And we work with different partners who enable that service, and then it feeds into opening up the bank account through Truly Financial.
Okay, great. So, coming back to the offerings which you provide, so if you can list down in terms of what are the offerings you provide in terms of uh, credit cards, and so as of now, I think the credit cards are in US and Canada. I think if right.
Yeah, I can explain that. So
Yeah, yeah.
in terms of the service, first of all, think of Truly Financial as an all-in-one bank account. So what that means is for our US customers, we give them a US checking account. And we also give them the corporate Visa cards, which is not really a credit card. It's more like a debit card. But unlike debit card, which does not give you rewards, our customers get cashback rewards on their card spends, just like a credit card. And they can issue these cards to their employees wherever in the world their employees could be living. So you could be a US company with an employee in Canada or in India. You can actually issue a card to the employee in India, and they would use it in Indian rupees, right? And you don't have to keep sending, imagine somebody buying like an $800 laptop. How do you send $800 to them halfway across the world, right? It's inefficient, and it's very costly to do that. So they can do all of those purchases wherever they are living. They can, attend the conference, they can pay for a hotel, all on the corporate Visa card. So that's the second product. And then the third one is our multi-currency accounts. So these businesses also get access to a local account in euros, in Canadian dollars, and in British pounds, GBP. So we give them access to these three local accounts. And then the fourth product is a different kind of a multi-currency product, which gives them 32 currencies in a single account. So they can receive payments from customers across the world in any of those 32 currencies, including, of course, euros and GBP. And they can also make payments in that currency without converting it back to US dollars. So these are the four products. And if you look at what we're really doing here is we're making global banking accessible without the high cost that would normally be there with, let's say, a Citibank account. For Canadian companies, we also offer them a local Canadian dollar bank account. And in addition to that, they get a US dollar bank account as well. So they can transact between the US and Canada very easily. And the same goes for US companies as well. So this is kind of what we brought together as an all-in-one account. Now, prior to Truly, look at what the situation was. If you went to a large bank, you would get a local US dollar account. Now, if you, as a US entity, want to open a euro account, you have to actually go to a bank in Europe, because most US banks will not open a euro account for you, right? If you have to issue a card to an employee outside the US, it's an absolute no. You just cannot do it. So we are solving for these real needs that businesses have, which is not really possible through any other conventional means.
Right, right. So I need to ask you this, considering in the times we are living. So with pandemic in 2020, 21 now, what's the behavior in terms of banking? So do you see that your business has actually help businesses in these times. If you can give us some interesting thought point on this, and how I can tell you what is happening in India. In India, the
Mhm.
last 10 years or so, the technology adoption has really accelerated, and if
Right.
not by 2 decades, at least by a decade. And there are two reasons to that. One is uh, the data penetration and the internet cost, which is lowest in the world. The second is when the pandemic came, it really further accelerated the technology adoption and digital payments. And you know the story of UPI in India. And now
Mhm.
many European countries and other countries are actually going on and taking this technology from India to see if that can fit into their banking
Yeah,
system.
UPI is just going gangbusters. It's amazing.
Yeah. So how has been your experience in the pandemic, in terms of, do you see that, and do you see that the neo banking and the digital banks and US and Canada really, and how has been your experience with that overall? Do you see that adoption in technology there also?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say this, that even before the pandemic, we saw that the need for a efficient, payment friendly banking service was always there. And if you really look at North America, especially, it's a very vast country, both the US and Canada. And there are, we tend to think of businesses from the lens that we are familiar with. So, you might think of a New York or Detroit or, Boston, Toronto. Like, you think about these cities and then you think about business. But look beyond these cities, look at the smaller cities. The banking there, even today, like, you think first world country, US and Canada, banking is great. It's actually not. So in these smaller cities, and I'm not even talking about smaller towns, the banking is pretty limited, both in terms of the choice of banks that you have, and the fact that you cannot do all of your banking online. For many things, you still have to go to the branch. Now, what really happened in the pandemic is, leaving aside the time that you waste going to the branch, no one actually wanted to go to the branch, right? They just wanted to do all these things online. And that was a great opportunity for us, because there are two things that you do when you go to a bank. One is you go and open a bank account, and the second is you do your daily business banking, right? We facilitated and enabled both of these to happen online. And that was, just, I would say, uh, a factor of the smart technology that we built, both for customer onboarding and registration, as well as for all the transaction processing. So as in this world of payments processing, there is a lot of stuff that you need to do in terms of compliance, regulation, monitoring, and so on, just to keep the bad eggs out of it, right? The bad.
Mhm.
So we built that using technology, and that really found it resonated with all these smaller businesses, because largely they feel uncared for. And when we built the solution just for them, they found that they could do everything that they wanted with their local bank just online without leaving their home. So to that extent, the pandemic definitely helped us reach out to many more customers and satisfy their business needs, because even small business owners, they're working from home. It's not just the large corporates. A lot of them are just working from home, and leave alone going to the office. They did not want to even go to the bank. So that really helped. And then, once you've established the product and service that you're offering, and customers have found good feedback with that, then it's a question of really kind of building on top of that. So now the world has changed. We are going back to the offices, but the trend that has got triggered off by the pandemic has actually helped us accelerate after that.
Completely agree with you on this. And I can understand the value of the offering which you're providing, because I keep getting clients and founders who want to set up in US, and then they struggle with the bank account, they struggle with the card. And I think it's a great service which you have built in. And
Yeah, and just to add to that, for a traditional bank, it's really hard for them to verify a customer's identity when they're opening an account, because they're just accustomed to having the customer sit across the desk, furnish a piece of ID. Someone at the bank will confirm that yes, they have seen that person in live flesh and blood, and that's how the traditional systems work. Now, this is archaic. This is completely against everything that we know today. You can open an account with with Robinhood for trading in securities, and that is far more risky than opening a bank account.
Right.
So there's no reason why you should not be able to open a bank account sitting from the comfort of your home. So we made all that possible through technology, and I'm sure other banks will follow suit. But you have to just be ahead of the game and do better and better, which really keeps you ahead of what anybody else is doing. And we started that even when we were just doing B2B payments, because compliance and KYC and all that is really critical. And when we started kind of building for Truly Financial, we knew that there are a lot of advantages that we have compared to the traditional or conventional banks. And don't get me wrong, conventional banks are great, but they're falling short of meeting customers' expectations, and that's where we come in.
No, I completely agree with you, and their problem is your opportunity, and now you have converted that into your opportunity, and that's where and small and medium businesses, this is so critical for them, because they cannot just they don't have the bandwidth and the infrastructure and the reach to go and set up with traditional banks and then open those bank accounts in different countries and maintain those. And it's a big hassle which you are trying to solve. So Sandeep, a couple of more questions which I have. So what's next for Truly Financials? I mean, what's in store? Where do you see uh, this company in next 2 to 3 years?
Let me see how do I answer that. Going back to our vision of being the global business banking for SMBs, you mentioned, Alok, 34 or 35 million SMBs in the US, and there's probably about 4-ish million in Canada. That's roughly 10% of the US. Now that comprises about 20 million or so registered businesses who are like in the formal setup, and about, I would say, 12 to 15 million who are in the informal setup, right? If we talk about the US market. Now extrapolate that to fast growing countries like India. China again is another behemoth, and really many countries in Latin America, in Southeast Asia. The opportunity to help these businesses with becoming global businesses has never been greater, because the world is changing. The internet and communication has just made it possible for the best entrepreneurs in the world to find the best customers, regardless of being limited by geography, right? Now that discovery process has been enabled by the internet and so many great products that we use every day. For example, this Zoom call. But what has not changed? Banking has not changed at all, right? Now, unless that changes, how do these businesses really leverage and become a global business? It just can't be information flowing through the pipes, right? It has to be money flowing through the pipes as well. And that's really our vision in terms of enabling this for small businesses globally. Currently, we are doing it in the US and in Canada, and we plan to make our services available locally in other countries over the next 2 to 3 years. Really looking at kind of creating that ecosystem where today, if you look at, Canada, the US is the largest trading partner. So if we are able to now enable this US to Canada trading and become the best at that, right? We want to take that model to other countries who are doing business with, with different countries where they are large trading partners, and really change the game in terms of, what global banking means for them. Now, that could mean, an Indian company buying from China or selling to the US, right? And there you see, it's two-way. It's not just about sending payments, it's also about getting paid from your customers. And that's where you need global banking. It's not bilateral, it's actually like a network. And that network is really what we are creating.
Right, right. I mean, that's a great thought and great vision. And I completely agree with you, and all of my best wishes for this. And I think with that, I come to an end of this session today. And again, I thank you for taking out time and talking about and narrating your vision and what truly financial does. And I truly admire in terms of the solution you are building. And I can feel that more so because I have so many global clients and they always struggle with this. And I close this off with just one request that you should quickly do and expand into Singapore also, so that it helps a lot of my other clients. And I think that's it from my side. Dipanjali and Sandeep, if you want to say anything, please, if you want to.
Yeah, and just to kind of concluding remarks, what you mentioned, Alok, about Singapore, and that's exactly what is happening, right? Each country has found niche opportunities and pockets which works really well for them. So India and Singapore, the trade is, and if you look at startups, that ecosystem is growing so rapidly. So we certainly want to become the enabler so that our customers don't have to run from one bank to the other just to get their day-to-day work done. I mean, most small businesses, they just want to focus on growing their business and not about figuring out how to solve the banking problem, right? So we take that over from them. But on that note, Alok, it was absolutely wonderful talking to you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Dipanjali, for setting this up.